Yo, what's up guys? It's Dallas here, and I'm here with another video for you guys. Today I want to focus on the topic of flirting. Now I know I have a video going over how to improve game, but that video is more of an overview. Right now I want to hunker down and get more specific on the topic of knowing what to say when you're flirting. This video is going to be divided into 3 main sections, followed by an outro in which I'll give my personal tip for when I want to practice in flirting and knowing what to say during conversation. The first section I want to go over is the psychology of flirting. Now there's this guy named Cialdini, and if you don't know who Cialdini is, he's a guy who's been a psychologist since the year of 1971. Now, Professor Robert Cialdini once stated in his book Influence that there are 6 major principles or weapons of influence. These 6 principles are reciprocity, commitment/consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be focusing on the first principle, reciprocity. Reciprocity is the idea that people don't like to feel in debt to somebody, and we naturally reciprocate favors. One thing that can be reciprocated is feelings of genuine interest. You can actually use this knowledge when you're flirting with someone and knowing what to say. For example, asking open-ended questions is something that people who are genuinely interested tend to do. If the girl likes you, her response of course is going to be to reciprocate this genuine interest. Now, Cialdini also does mention that people tend to reject favors as a defense against the rule of reciprocity. This pairs uniquely well with Mark Manson's be polarizing rule, which is basically the idea of being polarizing with your interest towards women. If you don't know what this means, let me clarify. When I say be polarizing, when you're going to flirt with a woman, the last thing you want to do is come off as anonymous with your intention. You want it to be very clear that you're flirting with this girl. That doesn't mean you have to come up and just straight up say, hey, I like you. Although if that's your style, I don't knock you for it. Be very clear with your intention, aka be polarizing, as early on as you can in the interaction. If you're polarizing, it's clear where you stand, and if she likes you or not, you'll get your answer fast by simply observing how she reacts. Is she reciprocating, or is she defending against the reciprocity by rejecting your advances? The interesting thing about these 2 rules is that the more clear you are with your intent towards the girl, the more likely she is to reciprocate, because people tend to like those who genuinely like them. This is actually the #1 plot point in the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Another major factor in the psychology of flirting is the mere exposure concept. Another person who's been a psychologist for decades, Robert Zajonc. Forgive me if I'm saying these names wrong, but Robert Zajonc is a man who's practiced psychology for several years. He wrote a book called Attitudinal Effects of Mere Exposure. In his book, he states that we grow fonder of things we are exposed to repeatedly. According to Acta Psychologica, this effect increases consumers' attraction to products, especially when less attention was given to the design, aka simpler products. I say this because tons of us guys get caught up in the idea that we need to have this long drawn out conversations when actually we shouldn't. You don't know the girl well enough to even have a long drawn out conversation most of the time, so instead focus on short bits of conversation and keep it simple. Again, according to Acta Psychologica, the simpler the design of a product, the stronger the effect of mere exposure was. So the simpler your conversations, the stronger the effect of you being exposed to her is going to be. The best thing about using mere exposure is you're accomplishing 2 things. You're simultaneously exposing the girl to your presence more, while also giving yourself time and room to breathe and think of the next things to say. Also, every time you walk away from her, hopefully you gain more information and knowledge as to her personality and who she is. Therefore, it's going to be easier to come up with what to say next. This also pairs really well with another one of Mark Manson's ideas, which is how he describes how you should take a girl on a date, which is picking 3 distinct activities and or locations, and this in turn creates the idea that the girl's known you longer by exposing her to more memories with you. The next section of this video I want to get into is the biology of attraction. The chemicals responsible for what happens when flirting can be divided into 3 phases: lust, attraction, and attachment. Lust is at the very beginning and is exceedingly primordial. This is mainly affected by things like testosterone and estrogen. Attraction is also early on and is heavily affected by feel-good chemicals and excitement chemicals such as dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And the final stage is attachment, where you're building deeper bonds, and it is primarily affected by oxytocin and vasopressin. These 2 chemicals are responsible for things like your circadian rhythm and your tolerance to stress, pain, and anxiety. Understanding these chemical phases is important, as in phase 1 and 2, lust and attraction, using compliments and engaging conversation can and most likely will have a significant effect because they can stimulate feel-good chemicals and attune more to our simpler, more primordial nature. However, during phase 3, attachment, it can have the opposite effect since it conveys more of a sexual intent rather than a bonding intent. A study on the NCBI reveals that this may also be the reason why women are less attracted to their partners during ovulation, because compliments convey more of a sexual intent rather than a genuine bonding intent. And women tend to be more attracted to traits during ovulation than words. Obviously, you can't know what part of a woman's cycle she's on. I say this to be aware of the fact that when talking to women, sometimes it's not what you say or how you say it. It is simply about timing, and unfortunately, you can't control that. If it's simply put the wrong time to talk to a girl, that is outside of your control, which is why the Mark Manson B polarizing idea is all about quickness and moving through as many women as possible. So keep in mind, this is all just a numbers game, no matter how many tactics you have. The final section I want to get into is effective flirting tactics. Tactic 1, I would say, is use humor. According to a study at the University of Kansas, the more times a man tried to be funny, the more times a girl was likely to laugh. And also, she was more likely to express romantic interest. I'm sure we hear this 1,000 times from girls that a guy that can make her laugh has her heart, and this is very true. Watch stand-up comics and also just practice being witty in general, because that will in turn make you a funnier person. Don't be afraid to be a little unhinged as well. I know we keep on saying that there are certain jokes women can't handle, but believe it or not, women can handle a lot of jokes if you just have the right delivery. Tactic number 2 is mimicry. Subtly mimicking another person's body language, gestures, and speech patterns can create a sense of familiarity. But be very careful when using this, because if you're overdoing it, it can be seen as insincere. And as mentioned many times earlier in this video and in many books about attracting people, insincerity is one of the least attractive things a person can express. Now, this third tactic is a weird one. It's eye contact. Now, I know eye contact falls more under body language, but I do think that this is important to pay attention to when you're struggling on knowing what to say next. Eye contact is primarily used to express genuine interest and to showcase what you're focused on. One thing people tend not to think about with eye contact is that eye contact can be used to create a pause in conversation, which can give you time to think about what to say next. Not the most impactful tip, but it can help for when you're in a highly pressured situation. Number 4 is compliments. Now, I'm sure this goes without saying, compliments can create a positive vibe and create positive emotions. And it is also one of the clearest ways to express your interest in somebody. One thing to add on to compliments is cold guessing. Cold guessing is an interesting tactic that Mark Manson also mentions. I know I mention this guy a lot, but he wrote a whole book on dating, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. I'll leave the name in the description. But cold guessing is a great tactic. If you don't know what cold guessing is, it's pretty much you have an idea about somebody and you just say it to them. For example, one of the stylists I went to was moving her hand in a certain way when she was cutting my hair, so I said, "You're an artist, aren't you?" Now that's a cold guess. I don't know if she's an artist. I'm just guessing based on what I'm seeing that she's an artist. The reason why this is good is because it provokes conversation. That statement isn't just random. There has to be a reason why I think she's an artist. And if she's interested, she'll ask, "Why do you think I'm an artist?" So when I said, "You're an artist, aren't you?" she didn't initially say, why do you think that? She just laughed and said, "Yeah." So I wanted to provoke her to ask me as to why I thought that. So instead of just telling her why, I wanted to see if she's interested in actually knowing why. So I said, "I figured you were an artist." Then she asked, "Why do you think that?" Now obviously I say why I think that, and your reason can be whatever reason, and be genuine. Don't just make some crap up. But you make an observation about somebody. It doesn't have to be a super in-depth one. Just take a guess. You want to see how good your deductive skills is. That could be your reason for taking a cold guess. Your cold guess can also be seen as a compliment. Saying that somebody's an artist, and especially if they are an artist, they're going to take that as a compliment. There's nothing bad about being an artist, so it's another way to give compliments. So combine all of those tips together and build some form of a foundation. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to leave you guys with my personal trick and how I practice. I'm just going to assume that a lot of you guys are more comfortable talking amongst the guys. And this is primarily because the stakes aren't as high when you're talking amongst the guys. Utilize that comfort to practice talking. Now, when you're talking amongst the guys, don't just do it how you normally do it. Practice with intention. Pretend as if the stakes are as high. take verbal jabs at your buddies and pressure yourself to be the most witty guy amongst them. You can also do this with strangers as well, but be careful because you never know how a stranger is going to react to what you say. But then again, that is the point, to practice as if the stakes are just as high. So if you want to take a higher risk and get more reward, you can do that. Just be very mindful of what you say. With these scientifically backed flirting tips, you should have a much better sense of direction when figuring out what to say when you're flirting. And remember, practice does make perfect, so don't be discouraged if things don't go smoothly the first time. And until next time, peace.